Hi guys, welcome to episode 1 of the Top 2 podcast. I'm Luke, your host, and here's my co-host Matt. So hello Matt.
How's it going? You all right?
Right, today we've got on our first episode a championship preview. First day of the season, first game, Friday night, Huddersfield v Burnley. Matt, Burnley, what do you think?
So I think this is going to be a very interesting season for Burnley because they've lost a lot of players defensively. They've lost Nathan Collins, they've lost Nick Pope, Ben Mee, Tarkowski, and they've also lost at the other end. Weghorst has gone out on loan to Besiktas. So I've got a few questions over Burnley about how they're going to do defensively and how they're going to do going forwards. And they've just brought in the new manager, Vincent Kompany, and I've also got a few question marks of Vincent Kompany because I did keep a little track over when he was at Anderlecht and how he did underperform. But they've also brought in some good, really young players in Scott Twine, Samuel Bassin, Ian Mayston, and Ariane Muric. And I think the problem is that they've brought in such young players, and yes, they have needed to freshen up their team, but I don't think they're going to settle in straight away. And I think it's going to take them maybe half a season for them to settle in, and I think they may not reach top 6 this season.
Yeah, I think Burnley could get top 6. I think, like you said, they've signed a lot of young players. A few you didn't mention, Josh Cullen, who I think is a fantastic, energetic box-to-box midfielder. I liked him when he was at West Ham, when he went to Charlton on loan. He's done really well at Anderlecht. I'm surprised he's even dropped into the Championship, to be fair. I think Harwood Bellis on loan, very good centre-half, very young. I think he's got a bright future. Egan Riley, the same. Obviously, he's a permanent signing. I think, like you said, I think Burnley, they've completely changed their ethos as a club. They've gone from Sean Dyche, who signed proven older players who he could trust, to Kompany, who's a bit of an enigma himself, more of a character and a leader, right? Whereas Dyche was more of a managerial tactician. I think they've got a very good young squad. They've also got players like Jay Rodriguez, who's proven at this level.
Yeah.
Good Munson, if they can keep him fit. I really like the Twine signing. Last season at MK Don's one of the best players in League One. But sort of similar to you, I think I personally think Burnley will get playoffs, but I think it could also be a slow road back for Burnley. But I think if they show patience as a fan base, I do think they could eventually get back to the Premier League.
Yeah. I think my one glaring warning sign is going to be them defensively and what they have lost defensively. They've lost some really good players at the back. I think Nick Pope is the big one in goal, and also Tarkowski and Ben Mee. Nathan Collins as well is a brilliant young centre half who's gone deservedly moved back to the Premier League.
Yeah, but for years, Tarkowski, me and Pope or Heaton were Burnley. If you ever picked a team in your fantasy team, it was one of those three.
Yeah.
They were Burnley along with Sean Dyche. So I do think sometimes when these massive changes happen in a club, it can take time to get back. But I think I like the new transfer policy. Ian Matson's a great left back. Obviously, there's still Charlie Taylor, Connor Roberts the other side. So I do think they will be fine defensively, but I do think there's going to be a few bumps in the road. And I do think it could be a 2-season job to get back rather than straight away. But on the other hand, Huddersfield, I think they've had an appalling window.
Yeah.
If you rewind 2 months ago, they narrowly missed out in the playoff final to Forest. A couple of questionable decisions. We won't go into those, Huddersfield fans. They had a great young manager in Carlos Corberán, who I think is the biggest loss to them.
Absolutely.
And they've just had the soul of their squad ripped out. O'Brien and Toffolo both going to Nottingham Forest is a big blow. Levi Colwell and Daniel Sinani were both two important loan signings who they've lost. Even players like Naby Sarr leaving on a free, it's a lot of change at Huddersfield. And, I think they've made 1 or 2 decent signings. Jack Rodoni, I think, would be a great box-to-box midfielder, only young. But again, like with some of Burnley's players, might take a while to settle in, from League One. David Kasumu from MK Dons is another highly rated young midfielder, energetic, box-to-box. But I think Huddersfield have had a massive backward step this window.
Yeah.
I think their only shining light is keeping Sorba Thomas, and everything else has been doom and gloom for me.
Yeah, I fully agree. I think this is going to be definitely a season of struggle for Huddersfield, and I think they will absolutely struggle to get into the top half. I reckon. I thought even when they got the top 6 last season, I didn't think their squad was the strongest. Just they had a really good manager who found a winning way for them, and I think now that they've lost their manager, I think it's going to be really a bit of a struggle for them.
Yeah, I think it's Barnsley part two. I do. I don't think that it'll only be a struggle for top half. I think they'll be flirting with relegation, similar to when Barnsley lost Ismail, Mowat, DK. Obviously, Huddersfield have lost Corberan, O'Brien, Toffolo. I think they'll be. I had them originally to go down, but I think they'll just survive.
Yeah, no.
So what's your prediction for this game then, Matt?
So I've got Burnley to win 2-1.
Oh, same as me. I promise everyone we haven't coerced our predictions and talked about them beforehand. It's completely independent. Right then, so to the Saturday games. First game up, we have Blackburn and QPR. Matt, what do you think of Blackburn?
So I think Blackburn have lost, as similarly to Burnley, have lost a lot of key players. I think the main three are Joe Rothwell, Darren Lenihan, and Ryan Niambe. And I've also included Jacob Davenport as a one of the important players that they've lost, especially with. So I'm going to mention this a lot today about the 5 substitutes, and I think Jacob Davenport would have been one of those players that would have been very important in these 5 substitution rule. But they've made a couple of smart signings in Callum Britton, in Ethan Walker. But I also have a few question marks over their manager. I don't know much about the manager, and I think Tony Mowbray is a massive loss to them, and especially with the 3 players that they've lost. I think Blackburn could have a season of struggle. I don't think they'll be near the relegation zone, but I don't think they'll be pretty much bang on mid-table, I reckon.
Yeah, I agree. And for a club the size of Blackburn, mid-table's not good enough, really. You know, they're a massive fan base. For me, when I was growing up, they were a staple of the Premier League. You know, Two-Guy, Morton Gamps Pedeston, Roque Santa Cruz, Benny McCarthy, Samba, Ryan Nelson. You know, I don't think that's good enough. With regards to the manager, I know he's a fantastic player, but I know he's only really managed in like Malmo or Molde, one of the Nordic clubs.
Yeah.
So again, a lot of the managers I'll say this year in the Championship, a lot of them are unproven.
Yeah.
I'm going to go into QPR in a minute, but I think one thing that will stop Blackburn from being near the lower end of the table is keeping Brereton Diaz. I think that is a massive keep for them.
Yeah, that is a huge keep.
We saw them drop off when he got injured last season. You know, he got over 20 goals. I think if they can get Bradley Dack back fit, they can minimise the loss of Rothwell, because that front three of Dack, Brereton Diaz and Gallagher can definitely get goals. And I don't think they need to worry. I think they're a bit light defensively, especially at centre-back. You know, I was looking, they've got Scott Wharton, Hayden Carter, and a really good young centre-back called Adam Phillips. I think he's only like 17 though. Obviously, they've lost Lenihan. I think they've still got Ayala as well. So I think they definitely need some centre-back reinforcements and some full-back reinforcements. Obviously, they've got Britton for the right-hand side.
Yeah.
But I think defensively, Blackburn could be poor this year. And obviously, a lot of question marks about the manager.
Okay, yeah. And what's your opinions on QPR, Luke?
Well, QPR, again, Michael Beale, you know, ex-Aston Villa assistant. Not really any first-team manager experience. They've managed to get a couple of decent players in. I like Jake Clark-Salter.
Yeah.
I think, you know, left-footed, Chelsea Academy, had a good couple of loans at Coventry and Birmingham. I think he's a really technically gifted centre-back. And then they've got Taylor Richards and Tyler Roberts, who I'd describe as 2 people that when they were 17, 18 had an enormous ceiling, who've sort of lost their way a little bit at Brighton and Leeds.
Yeah.
You know, Tyler Roberts was signed for decent money to Leeds, and he's not really... You know, he was a striker then, and now he's sort of this creative midfielder. But if you look at his numbers, he doesn't really create as much. Tyler Richards was phenomenal 2 years ago at Doncaster under Darren Moore. Then he got a loan to Birmingham last year, and I don't think he played. So I think they're two good punts on loan, but I don't think there'll be mega signings in terms of the Championship. I think again, their best bit of business is keeping some of the players they've got. I think Rob Dickey's one of the best centre-halves in the division. I think Chris Willock, if he can recover from his injury, has been amazing. Senny Dieng's a great goalkeeper, and Ilias Chair's a great, skillful,
absolutely brilliant player. And I think also QPR defensively are going to be a good side and could also be one to watch. I don't think they quite have enough to reach top 6, but I think they could push for a top 10 finish this season.
Yeah, I agree. I think
it all depends on how well their new manager does.
Yeah.
It all depends on how he does. The same as Blackburn really could be said the same, but I just worry about them defensively. Going forward, I think they're okay as long as they keep their players fit.
For me, QPR have a better 11 than Obviously, they've got
Oh,
Brereton Diaz, which is goals win games, but Lyndon
yeah,
Dykes isn't bad finisher. Willett, Chair.
true, true.
I think they have got goals there. QPR, maybe not as many as Blackburn, but I think their defence more than makes up for that if you compare the two teams. So, what's your prediction on this one then, Matt?
I have QPR to win 2-0.
Oh, I've gone 1-1 in this game.
Interesting, interesting. So, what's your opinion on Blackpool?
Well, again, Blackpool have lost Neil Critchley, but unlike all the other teams that seem to have lost managers, have appointed someone with a fairly decent pedigree in Michael Appleton, who's someone for me who's been waiting for a championship job consistently for a while now. He's always been talked about as one of the best managers in League One and League Two. His spells at Lincoln, Oxford. He's got good ground in the Football League. I think it's sort of a tough job, Blackpool. There's not a lot of money there. They've only signed Dominic Thompson, who's a left back from Brentford, who I think is a decent player, and Reece Williams on loan from Liverpool, who I think is a little bit of a risk. He didn't put up many trees at Swansea recently. He looks a little bit weak for first team football, but mainly they've just kept the squad together. It's quite stable. They've still got like Jemmy Yates, Shane Lavery. They've still got Josh Bowler, who's one of the best wide players in the Championship as well. Very creative, does also chip in with a few goals. I think it'd just be the same again for Blackpool. They'll maybe occasionally flirt with the relegation zone, but for me, lower mid-table, definitely.
See, I think Blackpool could have a half decent season. I don't think they'll pull up any roots, but I reckon mid to lower mid table, I think will be a solid season for them. And on the other half, their counterparts, Reading, I think Reading are in for a season of real struggle. They've lost a lot of players. They've lost 28 players have left Reading this season, and I think the biggest one to highlight is going to be Swift. There, Swift is a brilliant player at this level. Got more than 10 goals and more than 10 assists last season, and I think that's a hard feature to do for any player in any divisions. And so to do it in the Championship is a really going to be a hard thing to replace
For a struggling team as well. I know he takes set pieces and penalties, and I do think sometimes when you look at goals and assists, you have to factor that in.
Yes,
But to still I watched a few Reading games last season, and they were poor. They were lucky to stay up. I think if Derby hadn't had the points deduction, then Birmingham would have been the team that got sucked into it. And I think having lost some of their key players, like you mentioned, Swift, Rinomota, Josh Laurent, who he scored some vital goals, even though he's a holding midfielder, he scored the vital goals in some games last season for them. He won't be there, and they've all gone for nothing. I think they are in trouble.
And I also want to say about that, there was a point last season where I thought Derby were just going to pip Reading into safety, and then Reading almost kicked themselves back into gear, and they started winning, going on a good run. And I think they've got a half decent manager in Paul Ince. I don't think he's a bad manager at all.
I do. I'll be honest. I'll people can clip this up. I think Paul Ince is a bad manager. I'll just say it. He was bad at Blackburn. He's bad at Macclesfield. I think he's a bad manager. I'm glad to see him get another go.
Yeah,
because I think
I think, to be honest, I think he did well to keep Reading up. I think Reading were far too weak last season, and I think they easily could have gone down. I think to bring their upturn in form, I think he did well in that respect. And I think some of the signings they brought in, some of them are maybe slightly passive, but I think Shane Long knows where the goals is. Jeff Hendrick, I think, is a really good signing for them. Sam Hutchinson, I think, is a good signing, and I think Tom Ince is a really good signing for them.
I think they've, like you said, they've signed some good names, but I question whether the abilities there. Shane Long's 35 now. I used to love watching Shane Long as a player, even like as a neutral. His work ethic, his leap. He wasn't always the greatest finisher, but everything else he brought to the team, he was brilliant. Tom Ince as well. At one point, I thought he was going to be brilliant, like top tier. Him and Matt Phillips on the wings for Blackpool. I thought they were going to be unreal. He sadly never kicked on really. A player who I do like that they've signed is Tyrese Forner on loan from Forest, who's a young holding midfielder. He'll obviously replace Rinomota or Lawrence, and I think he's good. He was on loan at Shrewsbury last year, and I think he did. If Forest hadn't gone up, I would have expected to see him in their squad. So I think a move to Reading is a very good move for him. The one signing I don't like, and I've already bashed him, so I might as well double down. I'm not a fan of Joe Lumley personally.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of Joe Lumley at all.
I think he cost Middlesbrough a lot of points last year. I think he did it to QPR 2 seasons ago. You know, I was surprised to let go of Luke Southwood. I was really impressed with him when I watched him, and they've let him go on loan to Cheltenham, I think, and they replaced him with Lumley, which for me, if it was me, I'd rather have kept Luke Southwood, but that's just my opinion.
Fully agree. And I think with Shane Long, I think Shane Long's a similar type of player to Dwight Gale, where both of those two players relied on their physicality, their pace, and I'm going to question both of them whether they still have that physicality now to do it. They both know where the goals are.
I think Gale's twice the finisher and striker that Shane Long is. I think as an all-round player, like touch, pace, work rate, aerial ability, Shane Long, but as a striker, Gale would get you 20 goals, Shane Long would get you 10, 15.
I think Shane Long, I don't know about in this Reading side, but I think in another side, Shane Long could get you, if you put Shane Long in the same side as Stoke, I think they're about on the same level, I reckon.
Nah, not for me. I think if Gale's the player he was after his injury, Gale will get 20 goals at Stoke. I think there was a lot of risk in them signing him there. Personally, he's not played a lot of football the last 3 years, but neither has Shane Long. And Shane Long's never been, even in the prime of his career when he was at West Brom and Southampton and Hull, he never was really prolific. He was always sort of your 10 goal a season when he was in the Premier League, about 12, 15 in the Championship, you know, and obviously that's not going to improve with age. So I think if they're relying on him, I think they're more likely going to be relying on Lucas João and Yaku Moite to get their goals.
I mean, Lucas João is a good striker as well in his
I agree.
And a lot of the Reading fans do rate him highly, as I know. So, what do you reckon for scores?
Well, I don't think Reading will get off to a good start, unfortunately. So I've gone 3-1 Blackpool.
I've also gone the same result. I've gone 3-1 Blackpool.
Great. Right then, so our next game's Cardiff and Norwich. So Norwich have obviously just been relegated from the Premier League. You know, they've got Dean Smith as a manager who obviously knows the division very well. Obviously took Aston Villa up, managed here with Brentford before. But in my opinion, he started off this whole Brentford revolution, which is obviously then carried on by Mark Warburton started it, then Smith, then Thomas Frank obviously carried it on. You know, they've not really lost anyone really. They've lost the loan signings that they had, like Brandon Williams, Ozan Kabak, Matthias Norman and Billy Gilmore, I think are two good players. But they've signed this Gabriel Sara from Santos for nearly 10 million, or a Brazilian team, I might have that wrong. And I was just looking at some compilations of him. He looks a really good player. And obviously they've lost Norman and Gilmore. Obviously compilation videos aren't always the best metric. But you know, if they're spending 10 million when there's not much money about, they must have some high hopes for him. And I also read they've been scouting him for 3-4 years, so they've definitely done the research on him. A signing I really like though is Isaac Hayden on loan from Newcastle.
Yes, that's the fantastic.
I'm very surprised the Premier League club didn't go for him. The only reason I can think Norwich have got him is because of his injury. And maybe his wage. But other than that, I think he'll be one of the best midfielders in the Championship this year.
The only question I have over the Brazilian is whether he can step up to the physicality. The Brazilian league is a very, very different league to the Championship. And the Championship is brutal in terms of the physicality, especially this season with the World Cup this season. It's going to be game in, game out, game in, game out. And it's whether he can keep up to that pace. I think technically he's going to be a brilliant player for Norwich. And it's just whether he can step in quite quickly as well, because the games are coming thick and fast. Quite quickly, it's quicker than usual as well. Yeah,
I agree. I think as well, the last good Brazilian player I remember in the Championship was Matias Pereira for West Bromwich Albion, and he was phenomenal, but it did take him a couple of months to even get in the team. I remember he didn't really even start featuring until October, and then he was a bit iffy, and then he really, really kicked on, and then he built on that in the Premier League. And I think if Norwich fans were a bit patient with Sarah, I think they could see a similar like benefit long term. And obviously 10 million, they're committed to the long term project. I think it's on a 5-year deal. One thing I want to actually ask you about, because I've seen a lot of mixed feelings. Obviously last season Todd Cantwell was loaned out to Bournemouth, didn't get much game time, wasn't very good for Norwich the season before. They've got him. What do you do with him? What do you think of him?
I think I'd give him a run of games. I think with a length of run of games in the Championship, I think he could do well. But if he doesn't start pulling up trees, doesn't start playing the way that he could do, then maybe try and look at a different option. But have they got any players that can play in this position and do what he does?
Mm. The one they did have was Christian Solis, and they've loaned him out. So
Yeah,
I do think, and obviously they've got Kieran Dowell, who I've already mentioned, who I think is good at this level. But the thing with Cantwell, and I like him to Dele Alli, but he never reached Dele Alli's heights.
yeah,
He seemed to have the world at his feet at one point. He was sort of, I think at one point, him and Grealish were even sort of
yeah,
people saying maybe Cantwell's better than Grealish, Grealish better than Cantwell. And then one's just massively kicked on, and the other one,
yeah.
sorry, I think Cantwell's starting to flounder a bit. And I think he needs this season sort of similar. I think if he doesn't have a good season this year, I think Norwich will get rid. But again, like other clubs, I think Norwich's best thing this window is keeping hold of Max Aarons, Tim Krul, Timu Pukki, Ben Gibson.
Yeah.
You know, they're the core of players that have
The,
got them up.
the only one I want to question is Timu Pukki. We all know Timu Pukki is a good striker, but I'm only questioning because of his age whether he will keep fit the whole
Oh
season.
no, he was still showing it in the Premier League. I
It's,
get where you're coming
the
from, but
fitness, it's the fitness side of it, not the ability. I think he's got the ability. Whether I reckon I don't want him to because I never wish it on anyone, but he could pick up an injury and
yeah.
just because of his age and how he's getting on.
I think he'll get 20 goals, Pukki, easy. But the one thing I will say that Norwich have done well, in my opinion, even though some of these players I mentioned aren't the best goal scorers, they've got a lot of options for him. They've got Adam Eder, who's coming through. He's finally starting to show. He scored a couple in the Premier League, not many, but he's finally starting to show something, you know, very pacey, direct. You know, he's only going to get better. Josh Sargent, who was brought in from Werder Bremen last season, he scored about 6-7 Premier League goals. So I reckon that would easily translate to 10-15 in this league. And then they do have Jordan Hugill, who, you know, we saw at West Brom and Cardiff. He, you know, not the best finisher, but he works hard. You know, he puts himself about. He knows the division.
Even if sometimes he doesn't score, he can create just by being in that position. And he works off the ball, he works on the ball, and he brings other players into play. Which, in a side like Norwich, who have that players who can be brought into play and produce a bit of magic, could work very well for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I just want to go on to Cardiff. So Cardiff have brought in a lot of players and a lot of half-decent players. Romeo is a good player. Ojo is a good player. Rinham Hotter, Sawyers, Kipre. I think all five of those are good players. But I only question the quantity. I think if they can gel quickly and if they can, which to be fair, Cardiff have done a lot of their business quite early on in the window.
I
so
agree.
they've had that chance to gel, and especially the preseason. I'm not sure how well they've done in preseason.
Yeah.
But I reckon they've brought in some good players, but they've also lost a few players: Marlon Pack, Aidan Flint, Sam Vokes, James Collins, Bakuna.
Will Vokes, that is. Will Vokes. It's all right.
Yeah. Will Vokes. But it's whether the players that they brought in can settle. If they can settle, I think Cardiff will have a good season, maybe top 10, maybe even top 6.
I personally think it's a season of transition for Cardiff, and I know that term's used a lot in football, and you know, sometimes it's a cop-out, but you know, over 20 players in and out. They've lost a lot of the players that have been there for years: Flint, Pack, Volks, Bakuna, Collins, Murphy. They've been there, I reckon, combined over 30 years. Like, if you added all the years up, like 30 years worth of playing time at Cardiff easily. You know, Alex Smithies is a good goalkeeper. I'm not sure if he's been picked up yet, but I'd have thought a side like Reading could have done with him over Lumley easily. But that's a lot of experience, a lot of players that have been at the club a long time. And then while I do think, like you, they've brought in a lot of good championship quality players, like Rinamoto, I really like. I think Kipre was done slightly harshly at West Bromwich Albion. You know, I think when I watched him, occasionally he would have a mistake in him, but on the floor, he was a great progressor with the ball. You know, he was strong. And once he picked up his positioning, I think he was actually a really good defender. I think back to him a few years ago at Wigan, he was a monster, him and Dunkley. Yeah. And, you know, Romain Sawyers, you know, he's a bit of an enigma at this level because, you know, some people say you don't know ball if you think Sawyers is a bad player. And then some people who watch him all talk about the bad things of his game, like he doesn't track back, he can't tackle, he's not always in position. But then people highlight some of he is a wonderful passer of the ball. Yes. He is one of the best passers of the ball in the Championship. But either managers don't know how to get the best out of him, or he's not doing enough otherwise. Sort of like Arsenal towards the end, there was just too many detractions from his game. So it'd be interesting to see how they do. I do think I'm a little bit more cautious than you in predicting where they are. I think they'll finish lower mid-table. You know, that's probably not good enough for a club the size of Cardiff. But I think, you know, I think if Morrison can do well this season and it look like it, you know, he's signed the right sort of players, I think that he could get them back where they should be, which is the top end of the Championship, occasionally going up.
So what have you predicted for this game?
Oh, this one, I've had a 3-1 Norwich win.
I've actually got a bit of a risky prediction. I've just gone for a 0-0. I think Norwich will start off a little bit slow, but I think they'll find their way and they'll have a kick on and have a good season.
Yeah, there's always a shock the first couple of games. I think back a couple of years ago to Brentford, Birmingham, when Christian Pedersen scored that outrageous header from outside the area to win 1-0. And then obviously Brentford were up in the playoffs. So I think they might have even gone up that season. Yeah. And then Birmingham were near the bottom. There's always a shock. The thing is, you can't tell how well pre-season went until the first couple of games in. Teams are caught cold on the opening day. There's always notoriously slow starters. Look at Forest last year. They changed the manager after a few games and they got promoted and they were awful to start with. I think they were even bottom at one point. So, you know, opening day is like a cup game. Either team could win.
Shall we
go on to Hull and Bristol City next?
Absolutely, yeah.
What do you think of Bristol City then?
So, I've not been too impressed with their signings in or signings out. Cal Naismith, I think, is a brilliant signing for them, but I'm not so keen on them losing out on Casey Palmer or Calabadoda. I think those are two quite big losses for Bristol.
Yeah.
But I think they've got an excellent manager. Nigel Pearson is a brilliant manager at this level. But the past few seasons, they haven't really been where they're supposed to be. Bristol are a half-decent side in the Championship and have fallen a little bit below standards, I feel.
Yeah. For some reason, the last few years, I've always had Bristol City as my dark horse on the there's an outside chance to get playoffs, because I always looked at their team and I always thought they had like some great players, like they used to have like Thomas Callas. You know, if you look at the team now, Vyman's guaranteed to get you 15 goals and 10 assists. Antoine Semenyo really had a breakout year last year. I think he could get double-digit goals and double-digit assists. Chris Martin, Naki Wells, they've both scored goals in this division for probably close to a decade now. Obviously, they're getting on a bit, but the way Chris Martin plays, using his body, good in the air, hold-up play, that doesn't really rely so much on the physical attributes of his game, you know, and he's a good finisher. I still think he got double-digit goals last season. Dan Bentley, I think, is a phenomenal keeper at this level. Cal Naismith's a great signing. Tim Closer, getting him back on another short-term deal, I think is a great bit of business. Rob Atkinson was solid at the back for them last season. You know, I think the only area they're really lacking is that central midfield. They've got Noah Masengo, who I think is a really good young player. They've just signed Mark Sykes from Oxford, which is obviously a League One club. He was really good in League One, him and Cameron Brannigan, but it's whether they can make the step up to the Championship. And then after that, obviously lost Palmer and O'Dowda. I do think they're a bit of a loss, but I don't think they're as important as some of the losses made by other clubs. They were sort of players that had occasionally get in the first team, but mainly be impact subs. And I think Palmer had a bad injury last year, so he didn't really play at all. So I don't think they've really lost anything. So it's more or less a stable year for Bristol City.
I just want to make a comment on you saying about worried about their central midfield. I want to make a comment towards West Brom. As we know, West Brom had a really poor midfield last year. It was too slow. And we know that they didn't have the best season. They finished quite lowly. So I only question about Bristol City, the fact they have a struggling midfield is that they don't have the quality as much as West Brom had elsewhere on the pitch.
Yeah.
How are they going to do this season is my only worry.
Yeah, I think I think they could have a good season, but I don't think they'll be in the playoffs. I like the front three. I like the defence. I love the wing backs, by the way. We haven't touched on Kane Wilson, who was phenomenal at Forest Green last year.
Yeah.
Jay De Silva, I think he's a great player, but he's not had that standout year yet. I think this really could be his year. I think he needs to contribute more from left wing back, because I think he's a great player. Cal Naismith's going to offer great balance in that defence on the left-hand side. Set pieces is great as well. Like I said, I think they've got some good midfielders, Matt James, Andy King, but I think they're a bit past their sell-by date, and I think that would be the area that let Middlesbrough down. Bristol City, as well as maybe the striker.
Personally, I think Bristol are going to be closer towards the bottom half of the table. I don't think they'll be near relegation, but I think they'll maybe be around about that 18th, 17th spot.
Yeah. I think a little bit higher. I'd say about 12th to 14th.
So what do you think of Hull?
Hull's another team that's had a massive transition. Obviously, they've finally got new owners, which I'm always glad to see clubs who have had awful owners get took over. I was happy when it happened to Blackpool.
Yeah.
I can't wait. I was happy when Coventry sort of salvaged themselves. I'm hoping other clubs that are struggling, Birmingham, West Brom don't really have a good owner. There's a few in the Football League, and I do think the Derby, obviously, they are the most recent example of.
I somewhat disagree with the West Brom. I don't think West Brom have a good owner, but I don't think they have a bad owner. I think.
Yeah, I will agree with that, but speaking to a lot of West Brom fans, that they're not very happy. I've read a lot recently about him taking money out of their club, and for me, that's just how it starts. You get money took out of the club, lack of investment from his part, lack of communication. I think I'm not sure on this, West Brom fans, but I think he's been to one game in like the last 4 years. It's not good enough. So while I don't think he's a bad owner or in the same league as the names I've mentioned, he's rapidly going towards that. And I think the EFL need to stand up and start taking ownership of the clubs, because it's unfair letting these people ruin staples of the community. It's awful what happened to Bury, and I think it's disgusting that bodies such as the EFL, well. Yeah, well, fortunately Derby, though, they're still trading, they still exist, like people can still go there, but Bury have lost their community, like their club from their community, and I hate it. I think it's disgusting.
Yeah.
But back to Hull, they've got the manager Shota. I always butcher his second name, so I'll just call him Shota. They've signed a lot of Turkish league players because I think that's what he knows. Ozan Tufan is a player I actually know a bit about, former Fenerbahce. Had a poor season on loan at Watford last year, but I think that was mainly fitness related. I don't think he ever got properly fit. They've signed Jean-Michael Seri, who I think is a good signing. I know he's starting to tick over in age a little bit, but I do think he's a very good midfielder. Gets about energetic, sort of like a Wish version of a Championship Kante, like that sort of similar role. Yeah. Nowhere near as good. They signed Aliar, who they had on loan last year, the energetic striker, and I think they've signed some good free transfers as well. I think Figueiredo, he's been at Forest. I've never a massive fan of his, because I do always think he had an own goal or a mistake or a red card in him, but I do think for where Hull are, that sort of mid-table Championship centre-back, I don't even think he'll be a starter for them as well, so I think it's just great depth.
Yeah,
I think getting Nathan Baxter on loan, the goalkeeper, again, not that Ingram's bad, but Baxter's another level. He's a very good goalkeeper. I was surprised that other clubs didn't go for him. I was surprised that Middlesbrough didn't go for him before they got Stefan. I was surprised. Obviously, we've spoken about West Brom not getting another goalkeeper, but I think that Baxter would have been an improvement on David Button there. I also think maybe it's Sheffield United. I think he's a really good young goalkeeper. So I think for them to get him back, obviously the main two talking points with Hull, the two main negatives, they obviously lost Keane Lewis Potter to Brentford for 20 million, and obviously lost George Honeyman, who isn't by any means a spectacular Championship midfielder, but I think he was a good solid performer for Hull. Yeah, I think he was a good solid mid-table Championship midfielder for Hull. He's passionate. He always gave 100% for the club. So I think losing those two possibly.
And I think that's going to be a very, very big game for Millwall as well, which we'll touch upon a little bit later. George Honeyman, I think, is a really, really good player. And I think I do think Hull will have a good season, considering they come from League One. I don't think they'll get the top six, and I don't also think they'll be near the bottom. I think they're going to have a solid mid-table season, probably. Yeah,
they were solid. They were solid enough last season in the Championship. I think they'll just repeat it again, similar to Blackpool, similar to Bristol. I think there's a few clubs that have sort of not stagnated, but they're kind of not pushing on enough, but they're not also falling back. So what do you reckon the score will be?
I've gone 2-0 Hull.
See, obviously for each game I've looked at like recent records, and I've looked at Hull's recent record against Bristol City. They've lost 5 of the last 8 against Bristol. So I've erred on the side of a 2-1 Bristol City win.
See, I think records are there to be broken.
Yeah. So form goes out the window for an opening day fixture, but I do think it's always worth looking at, So the next game we've got on our agenda is Luton versus Birmingham. I
think Luton have done some excellent business. They've got a really good manager. Nathan Jones, I think, is a good manager. I think the two I've got to really highlight is Colton Mollis and Cully Woodrow, both from Barnsley. those are some really top quality signings for Luton.
Yeah.
I think the other key thing to note here is that they haven't really let anyone go of really important note. So they had a good season last season, and I can only see them having a better season this season. Luke Freeman as well is another brilliant signing, and Matt Macy, good signing as well.
Yeah.
And I've noticed James Brew's been playing in all of their friendlies. If they can find a way of signing him, I think that's going to be an excellent addition for them.
I think there's talk of an extension being triggered because I know his contract was up, but I'm not sure. Same as Adebayo, I think that obviously he's got a new deal.
Yeah,
I think Bree will be kept on. A word I've been using a lot. I've used it over Norwich and I'll be using it about other clubs. Is stability. A lot of Championship clubs have had to get rid of the manager, get rid of a lot of players. You know, Reading, Cardiff, Huddersfield. A lot of turnover. Whereas Luton benefit from that stability. Adebayo, Cornick, adding Woodrow and Morris. That it was only 2 years ago that Woodrow was being touted for a Premier League move. You know, yes, he had a bad season last season, and Barnsley were relegated, but that doesn't diminish their quality as players.
Yeah.
Woodrow is a good finisher. He fell out of the Fulham Academy. He dropped down the leagues. He went to Burton, scored goals there. He went to Barnsley, scored goals there, and I think he's only going to score goals at Luton, even as a rotation option. And like you said, the 5 subs. Imagine having Onyedinma, Adebayo and Cornick running at you for 70 minutes, then you get to bring on Morris and Woodrow. That is really good depth and goals.
I remember when Barnsley had a Villa and a Shmael, and they had the 5 subs in when we had that COVID half of the season, and Barnsley were just another beast when they could bring on 3-4 subs at 60 minutes and just absolutely run at you. It'd be relentless because you're there already playing 60 minutes and you're already tired, and when they've got absolutely fresh legs, it's absolutely relentless. And I think it's going to be a huge signing for Luton, and they've increased their depth, which is this season is going to be more important than anything because of these 5 substitute rule.
I agree. I can only see them. We'll get onto our predictions in a minute, but that'll be around the playoffs for me. Stability is key. Nathan Jones seems to know what he's doing there. You know, it didn't work out for him at Stoke, but he's a good manager. And then you look at Birmingham, and it's completely the opposite. I really worry for Birmingham this year. Another club who's gone unproven with the manager, John Eustace, replacing Lee Bowyer. I do think they were right to get rid of Lee Bowyer in the end. I think the fans had finally lost patience. You know, they were awful to watch. I'll be brutally honest. But their owners are. What the things they're doing to that club are ridiculous. Although there is apparently light at the end of the tunnel now with the Richardson and Lopez bid. Apparently that's looking a bit more likely. I'm not sure on all the internet. Blues fans, let us know in the comments. But yeah, they've done some good business though. I like Plaqueta. I think he's a good signing. I think Dion Sanderson. I'm going to touch on Blues defence in a minute, but I think Birmingham's defence is poor. I don't think they've got a registered left back at the club. No, they've let Jamie Bella and Pedersen go. The centre backs, you know, they've got Mark Roberts, George Friend, Nico Gordon. They're not Championship quality for me anymore. So I think signing Sanderson, who can play centre back and right back on loan, is a very good signing. I liked him when he was at Birmingham the first time. I liked him when he was at QPR. John Ruddy's a good goalkeeper.
Yeah.
So, you know,
John Ruddy's a really good goalkeeper.
Yeah, I know he's getting on a bit, but goalkeepers can play to their old.
Yeah.
Etheridge and Ruddy rotating. I don't think they'll have any issues there. And they've signed Austin Trusty from Arsenal. He's a bit of an unknown quantity. But again, they're just improving that back line.
I also want to make a comment on Jobe Bellingham.
Yeah.
I think also, even if you can produce a fraction of what Jude has done, he'll be a success at Birmingham and could be a catalyst for their season. But other than that, I think Birmingham will struggle.
Yeah, I think the thing with Birmingham is they do have some good players there. You know, Scott Hogan scored goals in the division his whole career. Yeah. I think Deeney last season was appallingly not fit. Yeah, and I'm hoping this season he kicks on because he is a Birmingham fan. He will care about the club. He won't want to see it go down.
Yes, yeah.
He'll be an important figure in that dressing room, along with the likes of Mark Roberts. They've got some good players there. Ryan Woods is a player I've always liked when he was at Stoke, when he was at Millwall. They've lost a few of their loan players as well, which is a big blow. You know, no to Heath Chong, who I was a big fan of.
Yeah, I'm a massive fan of him as well.
And I thought Lyle Taylor did a good job when he went there as well. I thought he offered them some more goals because I used to think Jukovic was good in this league, but I think he's massively tailed off.
Yes, yeah. I think he was
So
mainly good in the season just because of his pure strength and his pure
yeah,
heading ability. Other
the
than that,
season
he
with
doesn't really
Adams, he was
offer.
amazing.
He doesn't offer too much other than that than his strength, his heading ability, and his ability
Yeah,
to lead that line as a big man. But as soon as you take away those abilities, it's largely ineffective for me.
yeah. So unfortunately for me, this one I've gone Luton 3 now. I think
I've gone the same result. Three 0.
they're gonna finish inspiring, man. No, but I think Luton will demolish Blues. I think it's
And
going to
me,
be a
and
tough
me.
season. Right then, Millwall Stoke. Matt, you seem to know a bit about Millwall,
Yeah,
so how do you?
I know a little bit about. Well, I've got a friend of mine who's a good Millwall fan, and I think what's going to be a really exciting signing is Zian Fleming, and it's going to be very interesting to see how he replaces Jed Wallace, who Jed Wallace has been an absolutely incredible servant for Millwall. I know I've seen a few Millwall fans get a bit upset about how he's gone to West Brom for money, but in this day and age, you can't really blame
It's big
players.
money though. I'd
I
argue
don't think,
if a
yeah,
Premier League club didn't come in for him, West Brom, Norwich, Watford,
yeah,
they're his best chance of getting to play Premier League
yeah,
football.
and
20,
that's what he wants.
28 now. Yeah, I'd say it wasn't money,
No,
but
but
it's never nice to see one of your favourite players go to a
no,
rival. So I can understand, but for me, it wasn't a money move.
and also, for my opinion, is Jed Wallace could have left Millwall a lot sooner than what he did. Wallace to be there for the whole of his contract, what 4 year contract, 4 years he's been there.
4 or 5, yeah.
Yeah, he's been an incredible servant for Millwall, and he's loved there. He loves the fans, and he's still a big fan of Millwall. I also want to say, like, very good signings Millwall has done. A Phobe, Honeyman, we've already touched upon, and Charlie Creswell, absolutely really good signings for Millwall, considering that they've let Joe Wallace go. But I don't think they will have quite enough to go top six. I don't think they'll be floating near the bottom, but
I think now being that just outside the playoffs, they're another club like Luton, stability. They've had Gary Rowett a while now, but
yeah,
like you, I think if they'd have somehow kept Jed Wallace and made the signings they had,
yeah,
I'd have had them to get in the playoffs. I'll be honest, but
I
I think
agree.
losing Wallace, not just on the pitch, but in the dressing room,
Yeah,
I think that is a big, big, big loss. That's probably just going to cost them to miss out. But I wouldn't be surprised if they snuck in because we're
yeah,
going to touch on it later. Our predictions. I'm not confident on the bottom two of my championship prediction.
no, and same
Obviously,
with
we'll
me.
discuss that then. But they're one of the teams that could easily make a run in.
Yeah,
So are another team, Stoke. They've had a poor pre-season. I think the fans are starting to turn on Michael O'Neill. They've had three poor seasons in a row. I think finishing between 13th and 15th. They're the first team ever predicted to finish first in the championship and to not make the top half. But again, I like the business they've done. They've signed Aidan Flint to further strengthen that centre-back area where they've already got Harry Suter, who's one of the best centre-halves in the
yes,
league, no doubt about it.
fully agree.
They've signed Dwight Gale to go with Jacob Brown and Tyrese Campbell. Now,
Yeah,
for me, that is a strike force that can get you 50 goals easily. Brown got 15 last year. Gale's been guaranteed 20 goals. The only issue with Dwight Gale, as I've mentioned, is his minutes. He's not really played much
yeah,
for the last 2-3 years. He had a big injury.
yeah.
He is nearly 33.
And we never know if that injury at this stage is recurring. As you get older,
Yeah,
that chance for that injury to be reoccurring is significantly higher, and
yeah,
that's going to be a massive danger. If Stoke can keep him fit, it can be a brilliant signing. But I don't see Gale really starting to play till about September time, really, because
yeah,
he's still got to get those minutes up, even with the under 21s, and
yeah,
that could hinder Stoke having any real chance of getting top six, just because they might have a bit of a slow start.
yeah.
But the one thing I do want to say is that you mentioned about Michael O'Neill. If he does lose his job, is Carlos Corberan in a job yet?
I don't think he is. No, he's not.
I I
That'd be a good. That's actually a really good show. And I think
I,
it. I'll tell you now, if O'Neill doesn't turn it around at the start and they appoint a good manager, Stoke could mirror what Nottingham Forest did last
well
season because they've
I
got the players. They've got the players.
I was given some absolute pelters last year because I remember Nottingham Forest were rock bottom of the table, and I said, well, other than Derby, but I said if they appoint Steve Cooper, they could get playoffs. I wasn't sure if they'd win the playoffs, but I
Yeah,
reckon they could get top six, and that's what they ended up doing. And I got some absolute pelters for saying that.
yeah, yeah, and that's the same with Stoke because I like Josh Laurent as a sign. I like Will Smallbone as a signing. You know, I love Gavin Kilkenny as a signing. I think because Nick Powell is a great player, but he is injury prone. So having that second creative midfielder to rotate in with him, I
Yeah.
think that's a real. I think Stoke, as usual, have done semi decent business, but they've lost some of their older players. Of course, you know, they've lost Joe Allen,
Yeah.
Stephen Fletcher, Benik Afobe, Varancic, Tommy Smith. You know, I
And
think it did need
they lost
freshening.
Sawyers as well last season. I know he
Yeah,
was
yeah,
only
he
on
was on
loan.
loan. Yeah, I think he did need freshening up there because I
Yeah,
think he had gone stale, and that's why they kept finishing
yeah,
between 13th and 15th.
I agree.
They've got some good players there, and I think Stoke should be in and around the playoffs. Like, I think they're going to be a little bit below that this season, especially if O'Neill's there
I
longer.
reckon about ninth. That's
Yeah,
eighth,
I'd say between 10th and 12th. Yeah. In this game though, unfortunately, I've got Millwall to win 2-1.
I've got a ball 0-0.
Millwall love a draw. This is the game that I taught you the most. Honestly, I've
Yeah.
had 1-1, 0-0, 2-2, 2-1 Millwall, 1-0 Millwall. So I've stuck with 2-1.
Yeah.
Yeah. Our next game is Rotherham Swansea, Matt. You're a university city.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you tell us a bit about Swansea.
So Swansea fans absolutely love Russell Martin. He's a good manager, and he's done a good job from last year. They had a bit of a slow start last year, but then they really grew into it. I remember going away to Swansea, and they played really well organised. They keep the ball well. They progressed the ball well. The only thing that they're going to miss is losing out on Ben Hamer and Flynn Downs, and I think those are two big losses. But signing in Joe Allen's going to be a good player for them. Nathan Wood, I think, is going to be a good player. So it's that same word that you've been using, stability. They've kept the manager. They haven't lost a lot. They haven't gained in a lot. But I think Swansea got a chance of pushing that top six, but I don't think they quite will make it. Around about 10th, 9th, 10th, I think will be about a good season for them.
Yeah. Well, I think obviously there's still a bit of time in the window left. I think they could do with a goalkeeper, and I think they could do with a little bit more cover up front. But
Yeah.
one player they've signed that I really did like last year, who knows Russell Martin from the time at MK Dons, not MK Johns, Harry Darling,
Yeah.
really good with the ball at his feet. Young, I think he's only about 22. One of the standout centre backs in League One last season. Comfortable with the ball, being important in Russell Martin's team because he loves to play it from the back. And I think a back three of Harry Darling, Ben Cabango, who's a massive key. Along with Joel Pirro, and then obviously Ryan Bennett or Joel Latibodiere in the middle. I think that's going to be a really good defence next year. So, like I said, I really think Swansea are 1 or 2 players away from getting in the playoffs, honestly. Rotherham, though, I think they're going to be near the bottom.
Yeah.
They're promoted again under Paul Warne, great manager. They've kept one of the key players in Dan Barlaser, who was a really good CDM, technically very good, but also energetic, has the physical side of his game. Great passing, grabs a goal. But I just think their business is massively
underwhelming.
Rather than Rotherham needed to kick on, but I think they've gone backwards.
Yeah.
They've lost the top scorer in Michael Smith, who got 19 goals from last season. They've lost the second top goal scorer in Freddie Ladapo, who scored 11. So there's 30 goals gone. And then they've also lost one of their key centre-backs in Michael Ihikwe, who, you know, has been in League One teams of the seasons in years gone by. He's been the last 2 seasons, he's played over 90 games. Well, he's played 84 league games for them and 19 all comps. He's a massive staple. And I look at the signings and I just don't see where they've even replaced what they had, let alone done enough to kick on to stay up in the Championship. They've signed Cameron Humphreys, who's a few years ago at City, he was on my radar at like 18, 19 as like one of the next big young centre-backs. He went to Belgium, it didn't kick on. Now he's ended up at Rotherham. Could work out maybe, but massive risk. Connor Washington, fantastic work rate, but never really put up the numbers.
Yeah.
Alone in the Championship. Tom Eaves, another one who's more of a lower league forward. You know, Hull didn't want him, so they gave him to Rotherham. You know, and then the 2 signings I do like that they've made, Cohen Bramall, you know, obviously he was 16, signed from a club near where I'm from, Hensford, to Arsenal, dropped down to Birmingham, dropped down the leagues, was at Lincoln, had a couple of good years at Lincoln. Now he's moving back up to the Championship, and I think so. And I also like to sign a Grant Hall to replace Ihikwe, but I just do not see where Rotherham will get the goals to stay up at all. I personally, spoiler for later, I've got them to finish bottom.
Yeah. Well, we touched on Grant Hall earlier, and we were saying about he's an excellent squad player, but I think that's about it. He's a good championship squad player. I don't think he's quite good enough to be a consistent starter in the championship. If Rotherham can somehow like just about stay up, then they've got a chance of kicking off. But for me, it's going to be a really, really tough season. I
No
don't
chance.
see it happening. I think they're going to also finish bottom.
I don't. If they're relying on Washington and East to get the goals, I'll make
Yeah,
a prediction now that they don't get more than 15 between them,
yeah.
and that is nowhere near good
No,
enough
it's not. No.
because they're not going to have. I disagree with you a bit about Grant Hall. I think the bottom half of the league, he's a good starting centre back, but he can't do it by himself, and they're
No,
still going to concede goals. So
no,
they need to score, and they've
no.
just got
Yeah.
no goals in that team. So on that basis, I've had Swansea to win 3-0.
I've had got Swansea to win 3-1 in this first game just because of Swansea's sheer strike force. Joel Pirro, worth a
Yeah,
mention. Fantastic player.
yeah.
Shall we move quickly on to Wigan?
Yeah, Wigan Preston. Yeah, I know. I think we're about 50 minutes in. So yeah, we need to wrap these last 4 games up.
Yeah,
Right, and Wigan Preston. Preston have got a really good manager, Ryan Lowe. I was a massive fan of what he was doing at Plymouth.
yeah, yeah,
They've got one of the most underrated midfields in the league: Alan Brown, Ben Whiteman, Ryan
yeah,
Levison, Daniel Johnson, Ali McCann. All fantastically underrated players, workhorses, but also with technical ability. They've signed Freddie Woodman to replace Danny Everson. I think that's good business. And they've kept Reece Jacobson.
yeah,
So it, along with Pirro, Adebayo, I think he's a shoe-in to get 15, 20 goals. And I think I could see Preston having a good season. They've
yeah,
lost a few players that have been there a while in Barkhausen and Sinclair, but perhaps they were sort of losing their ability a bit. But they've made some good signings as well as Woodman. You know, they've signed Robbie Brady, which if they can keep fit, he'll provide the creativity for them. Troy Parrott, you know, he's been highly rated for a while, had a good season at MK Dons last year. Alvaro Fernandez from Man United, another highly rated youngster. But yeah, I think if they can sign a couple of wide players, I saw links with Callum Robinson from West Brom. I think
yeah,
that'd be a great signing for them. He loved the
yeah,
club the first time he was there.
yeah,
Guaranteed to get you, like, you know, near 10 goals, near 10 assists.
yeah.
If you can sign someone on the other side, I could see Preston flirting with the playoffs, definitely.
And so I think Wigan have made an absolutely fantastic signing in Ryan Niambe. That's a really good coup for a player, like for a team who really are looking just about trying to stay up in this division. I think Niambe will do no harm in helping that cause. I think I've got Wigan just about staying up, not by a lot, maybe 20th, 21st. But I think Niambe is a really good side. Losing out on Costello, I'm not sure if that was a smart move, but I've actually got Wigan to get that new season bounce, that promotion bounce, and got them getting a 2-0 win in this game.
Yeah. I've got them as relegation candidates as well. You know, I like Callum Lang, I like Will Keane, just whether they can do it in the championship. I've got them losing 2-1 to Preston.
Right, shall we move swiftly on to Borough?
Yeah, I like how you've mentioned Swift because obviously, you know, West Brom have had a good window, haven't they?
Yes, they absolutely have, and they've made 3 excellent signings in midfields with Swift, Wallace, and Yukushlu. That midfield last season was a really, really poor area for West Brom, and a large reason why they finished 10th last season. And I also want to touch on about they've got DK coming back from fitness, and that's almost like a new signing for them. But they've also lost on Sam Johnston and Sawyers, who are 2 good players in themselves. Johnston going to Palace, and Button might not be on the same level as Johnston, but I think Button can definitely do a job at this level, and maybe even Palmer can push him for that first team spot. And I think it's going to be interesting competition. The only worry I have, defensively, they were okay last season. They didn't concede too many goals. They probably could have done better defensively equally, but they didn't concede too many at the same time. The only issue I have is on the wing back, especially on the right. I don't think Furlong is good enough for a player in the top half looking for the push of the top 6, top 2. He's good enough for maybe lower down in the division. He did an okay enough job at QPR, but I don't think he quite has enough. And
Yeah.
I just want to touch on Steve Bruce. I think I know a lot of the West Brom fans aren't the biggest fan of Steve Bruce. He's not the most tactically sound manager, but he's a very good motivator, and he will get these players enjoying their playing football. And sometimes when you've got top quality players, sometimes that's all you need is for the top quality players to enjoy their football, and he will
Yeah.
definitely get that out of the team.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I think West Brom need a few more players to be challenging for the automatics, like a club of their size should be.
Yeah,
I think they definitely need cover for Daryl DK. I think it's unfair to expect him to do it all by himself. You know, the last good West Brom Championship team had Rodriguez and Gale in both 20 odd goals each.
yes, yeah,
You know, he could at least do with another foil, especially with the five subs, you know, bringing on that extra striker.
yeah,
And the fact that DK's just come back from a big injury.
yeah,
Um, Whereas, you know, I think West Brom will be in the playoffs this year. Like they said, they were just missing a finisher under Valeri and Ismail, and then they did fall off a bit towards the end. So it'd be
yeah,
interesting to see how they do under Steve Bruce. Whereas Middlesbrough, they sort of went from strength to strength, really.
yes,
They had Chris Wilder appointed, and that got them a boost to get them near the playoffs. Obviously, ultimately falling a little bit short. But I'm a little bit bemused by their transfer window. Obviously, they lost Sporar, Balogun, and Connolly all from their striker
yeah,
spots. But bearing in mind, they didn't score a lot of goals. You know,
yeah, yeah,
Sporar got 8, Balogun 3, Connolly 2 or 3. So the team had a lack of goals anyway. Obviously, they sold Jed Spence for good money. You know, fee rising up to 20 million, obviously 12 million up front. You know, they're rumoured to be losing Tavernier for 10 million to Forest or Bournemouth.
yeah,
You know, so don't see where the goals are coming from. They've got Coburn and Ikpeazu as the strikers. I don't see
yeah.
either of them getting 10 goals.
No, I agree.
And, you know, I think they've got a fantastic defence. I think Dale Fry's one of him and Suter and maybe Dara O'Shea from West Brom are the best 3 young centre-backs in the league.
Yes,
Certainly Fry and Suter are the
yeah,
top.
yeah.
You know, they've signed Dara Lenihan, who I think is a great signing for the
Brilliant,
centre-back,
brilliant sign.
to further strengthen the defence that was already strong. I think Ryan Giles at left wing back will be amazing. His set pieces are fantastic. I
Yeah,
think a very good attacking wing back. And I think Zach Steffen is a massive upgrade on Joe
yeah,
Lumley. So their defence, they look amazing, but
yeah,
we've got everything until that final third of the pitch, especially if Tavernier goes. If Tavernier goes, they've got one player who got 10 or more goals last season,
yes, yeah,
and that was Matt Crooks, who got 10.
yeah.
And, you know, I don't see where what more will chip in, I'm sure, but I don't see where the rest of the goals come from in this team. And I think that will stop them from getting playoffs potentially.
What have you got for a score?
Oh, I think I've gone 0-0. I've gone 0-0. I don't see West Brom breaking down that defence yet. Although, if I had to pick a winner, I probably would just edge West Brom. But Middlesbrough have got a good record against West Brom recently, only one loss in the last 7. And, you know, I don't see Middlesbrough scoring, I'll be honest, unless it's from a mistake. So I'd go 0-0.
See, I've got a 2-2 draw. I can see a couple of set pieces from Middlesbrough getting them a couple of goals. But I also think West Brom's new look attack of Swift. Dean Garner looks really sharp in
Yes,
the bits of him in pre-season.
that's a good point.
And Wallace, brilliant on the ball. And I think Dyke, or DK, should I say, will definitely bring a couple of goals this season. So
Yeah.
should we move on to the Sunday game with Sunderland Coventry, which I think is going to be a very, very interesting game. And I'm just going to touch on Coventry.
Two massive clubs, especially even more so Sunderland. I think Alex Neil's a really underrated manager at this level.
Yes,
I think he did a good job at Norwich. I know it's expected for Norwich to be up there, but I still think he did it well.
Yeah,
I think he was solid at Preston until the end, where it sort of tailed off, went a bit stale.
Yeah,
I think they've made some solid signings. I think Dan Ballard, I was impressed with him when he was at Millwall on loan.
Yeah,
I think that's a good defensive signing. I think getting Dejaku permanently is a good signing, same as Jack Clark. Obviously, they've got Patrick Roberts, Alex Pritchard, and keeping the main man Ross Stewart from when there was interest north of the border from the Scottish clubs. You know, 26 goals last season. I've been needing 15 off him. They've got Elliot Embleton and Luke O'Nien, who love the club, you know. Mr. Versatile, midfield, right back, attacking midfield. Anywhere you need him, he'd play for that club. He's a brilliant professional. I think Sunderland will have a decent season. You know, they've lost McGeady and Hoffman. I still think they need a keeper. Obviously, they signed Bass recently, but I think he should be coming in at number 2. I think they need a new starting keeper and maybe another striker to cover for Stewart. But I don't think, even if they don't get those, I don't think they'll be too low down. I think they'll be comfortable around the Blackburn, Cardiff, Bristol area.
Yeah, I don't think they'll be pushing any top 6s or anything, but I do think they'll have a solid mid-season. And I think very similar to Coventry. I think both Sunderland and Coventry are going to be around about the same sort of area. I do think, so this is a big curse here, but I think Coventry have got too good of a squad to go down. And because, and I say this because they've not really let anyone of note really go. And they've brought in some good squad players in Palmer, Costello, and Doyle. Those are three good signings for them. And Mark Roberts did an excellent job last season. And I think they're going to be round about 11th, 10th, 12th, round about there. And I think Sunderland will be round about the same.
Yeah, I agree with all that. I think keeping Hamer, Gyökeres, and at the minute O'Hare, but even if O'Hare goes, I think if you ask many Coventry fans, let us know in the comments, Coventry fans, which one of the three they'd let go to fund the reinvestment of the squad.
Yeah.
I do think they'd pick O'Hare. I think Hamer is one of the best box-to-box midfielders in the league now. Considering his stature, he doesn't get bullied at all.
Yeah.
His vision is amazing. His passing range is great. Gets around the pitch well. And I think Gyökeres is fast becoming a really complete centre forward, along with the Jakobsens, Adebayos, Piros. I think he'll be up there for goals as well.
Yeah.
So I think if Coventry fans did have to lose one of those three, O'Hare would probably be the one that they'd pick. But I think if they keep all three, I disagree. I think if they keep all three, I think they'll be near the playoffs again. But if they lose one, I think you could be spot on with your prediction. But I've had them to win this game 1-0. What are your thoughts?
I've had Sunderland to win this game 1-0.
That's one of those games that literally could go either way.
Yeah.
Just like the next game, Watford, Sheffield United. What do you think of Sheffield United?
Oh, this is a very exciting game for the first week of the Championship, and Sheffield United, they've made some very clever signings. Kieran Clark, I think, is a really good signing from Newcastle. Akhmedovich, I think, is going to be a good signing for them, and Reddy Carter as well. But it's very similar to Middlesbrough. I question where the goal's going to come from.
Absolutely.
Really letting Lise Moussa go. Burke's not really been
awful
the best player, but there's always been that surrounding where he could always chip in one or two, and they let him go, and they haven't really brought anyone in to further support that. But I think Paul Heckingbottom was a really good manager and did really, really well.
Yeah. I'm a bit unsure on Heckingbottom, I will be honest. And I fully agree. I don't see where the goals are coming from. They relied on Sharp and McGoldrick probably 2 years more than they should have. And Sharp's still there now. They are really, if they don't sign anyone, they are really relying on Ryan Brewster to score the goals to get them in those playoffs. They've got a lot of creativity behind him now. Reda Kadri, as you mentioned. Iliman Njai is a player that I'm really going to be watching this year. I think John Fleck's a great midfielder at this level. And if they keep Sander Berge, I think he is the best midfielder at this level.
Yes, I agree.
But if he goes and they sign no strikers, I'm going to be bold. I don't think they'll make the top six. I think if they lose him and they don't reinvest it, they've got a plethora of depth at wing back: Bogle, Baldock, Stevens, Norrington Davis, Max Lowe, Ben Osborne. They've got the best set of fullbacks in the division. They've got a solid midfield, but they've got no one to put the ball in there other than Sharp and Brewster.
Yeah.
McBurney, he seems to have gone off the rails. McBurney, it was one time he's scoring 20 odd goals for Swansea, and then fighting kids and hitting fans, and he seems to have just gone completely off the rails. So, but on the alternative, if Sheffield United do sign a striker or two, I think they could push for automatics. I think it's that pivotal that they address that'll be the difference between where they finish this season.
Well, so, and what's your opinion on Watford?
Well, I like the manager they've appointed, Rob Edwards from Forest Green. Forest Green had a fantastic season last season, promoted. The shock to me, though, is that they've kept Ismail Assar and Emmanuel Dennis at
absolutely,
Gordon. I think if they both stay in this league, there's two people that will score 20 goals each.
Yeah.
They have lost a few players that probably has hurt the overall quality of the squad. Josh King, Cucho Hernandez, Musa Sissoko. I think losing Andre Gray as well, he'd been useful in this division. Philip Zinkernagel. Losing Ben Foster, I think they've replaced him quite well with Hamer. They've got Bachmann, who was probably going to be the number one anyway. But, just for that voice in the dressing room, perhaps. I think if Rob Edwards can coach defence, Watford's defence, they've got Kabasele, Troost-Ekong, Samir, Cathcart. None of those have been brilliant in the last few years, but if they can coach a good defence at Watford, they've got the goals to score. They were shown that in the Premier League. But even regardless, I think that'll be up there for the contenders for the automatics.
The only thing I want to question is whether they've got the depth. Because they lost a lot of key players, as you mentioned, Andre Gray. Whether if they do find themselves in losing situations this season, whether they have enough to turn themselves around in games. from
Yeah,
the
I think
bench.
I think attacking wise they do. They've brought in a player called, I won't butcher his first name, but his surname's Bio.
Yeah,
He's scored some goals. Ray Minaj was
yeah,
actually a really highly rated youngster at Barcelona a few years ago.
right, yeah,
He loaned out to a few clubs, a few in Italy, and he's never really kicked on. And they've managed to acquire him. He could easily score some
yeah,
goals at this level. He just needs the right manager
yeah,
because the ability's there.
yeah,
So I think the fine attacking wise, I think they've got depth at the back. You know, they've got Femenia and Gaki for that right hand side. Obviously, the four centre backs I mentioned. They've got really good goalkeeper depth. Backman, Hamer, even Pontus Dahlberg, who's been on loan in League One and League Two of recent times.
yeah,
They've got good strength there. I just question the midfield a bit, really. Imran Louza is a player that I think will have a good season this year.
yeah,
And I think they need him too, really. And then obviously Tom Cleverley and people behind him.
yeah. What do you think for a score?
This one was the toughest. I know I said I changed a lot on Millwall State, but for me, this one was the toughest game to predict. I've gone 2-1 Watford.
I've gone 2-0 Watford, just because I don't know where the goals can come from Sheffield United.
Yeah.
But I still reckon Sheffield United will still have a good season, even despite this first game.
Yeah, I can see that. Right then, so we've alluded to it all episode. We haven't discussed, it's going to be the last thing we discussed today. We don't know each other's predictions. We've gone a top six and a bottom three, and we are going to revisit them after the transfer window closes. Yeah. But let's hear your top six, Matt, for the season.
So in sixth, I've got Borough. Fifth, I've got Luton. Fourth, I've got West Brom. Third, I've got Norwich. Second, I've got Sheffield United, and first, I've got Watford.
Oh, that's it. Let everyone know in the comments what they think their top six will be. I've gone a bit different. I've really struggled on six, I'll be honest. I didn't know whether to put Swansea or Luton. I've just gone Swansea.
Yeah.
I think Luton will be the next team out. I've got Burnley in fifth, which I noticed you didn't have those in there at all.
No.
And I'm going to drop a bomb. You've put Middlesbrough second. They're not even in mine. I've got them as the next team down.
Oh, gosh, Middlesbrough sixth for me. I've got Sheffield United second.
Oh, yeah, sorry, Middlesbrough sixth. So, yeah, I've got Swansea sixth, Burnley fifth, Sheffield United fourth, because I do think they'll sign a striker. Even if they lose Burge, there's the money to get the strikers. And then I think the rest is all there. I've gone West Brom third, but I would swap them with Watford if Watford lost Dennis and Sarr.
Yeah.
So I've got Watford second. No surprises for me. I've been boring. I like ham and cheese sandwiches.
Yeah.
You know, I have water in my meal deal. I've gone Norwich top. Right, and so other end of the table, we've also predicted our bottom three. Matt.
So I've got Rotherham bottom, Reading second from bottom, and I've got Birmingham third from bottom. I've got Wigan just missing out.
Oh, you put Birmingham to go down? Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, I do think they'll be down there, but I've got the same bottom two as you, Rotherham and Reading. I've actually gone Wigan next, and I actually think the next side above that will be Huddersfield. I think a lot of turnover, no planning for it, lost a lot of key players. I think it'll be a lot similar to what Barnsley did, but I think they'll just survive. I've got Birmingham, but so my bottom three is Wigan, Reading, Rotherham.
I think Birmingham have got a lot of problems going deep down in the club, and I think it's a bit of a toxic club at the moment, a toxic place to be for players, from management players, the board. And I think this could be a difficult season for them. But I don't want to see a team like Birmingham go down. They're a big side and they're a big club in the Championship. But I think maybe going down could be what's best for them, and maybe they could have a new turnaround.
I don't know about going down. I think we'd be seeing another derby or anything worse. I don't want them to go down. I'd fear for their club. Right then, so that wraps up our first episode. Matt, have you enjoyed it?
Yeah, it's been brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah. Right, everyone, let us know your thoughts in the comments. Let us know your top six, your bottom three, any feedback for the pod. You know, this has been the Top 2 podcast. Peace out.
Thank you.